I am going to the same green.
But I would say people in the very upright, I'm very ready for the potential of everything from drones to. I just came in from outside to a heat wave.
He's with me.
What about the end next tonight? Let's say I know. New York City, you got the Knicks playing against the Spurs, and the president will be there too. Okay, so Secret Service, a bigger city like New York, they know what to do and how to handle a presidential visit. But this is really just ahead of also the city hosting World Cup um, excitement and passion. So how does all this blend together? Yeah, it's a little bit different because the president is, um, not terribly popular in New York City. I would say, that's fair to say. And so you have a political overlay, which I would say FIFA has been trying to avoid. You've got some politics with the Iranian team. The United States should let the entire team in. This is now getting silly and petty. In New York, you're going to have American citizens who have a right to protest, right to heckle. That's all going to happen. No one should be surprised about it. That's America. But when you do have a security overlay, I think the Secret Service, and unfortunately, this just has to happen given that Trump is coming is basically control the perimeter. That means New Yorkers are going to be not going to have the experience that they will want, including the watch parties. We'll have watch parties elsewhere. That's the price of having the president visit one of these. I hope it's the only one because I do think, regardless of who the president is, this would happen in any situation. It's just an increased burden, and unless absolutely necessary, like an Olympics, generally presidents city presidents avoid things like that because of the burden on safety and security. You really don't see sitting presidents come to events like this. You'll see the mayor adapt. I think he did the right thing. In terms of hosting those watch parties nearby, and then maybe open up more watch parties outside of the secure zone. All right, Julie, Diane, always great to have you. Thank you so much. It's gonna be a summer. Yes, it is indeed. It's already started. Thank you. All right, this breaking news out of Israel, where it is believed that Iran has launched missiles toward the country. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is in Tel Aviv for us. Jeremy, what more do you know?
Yeah, Fred, this is major breaking news. Iran has now fired at least two waves of ballistic missiles towards the state of Israel. Been sounding in northern Israel tonight, including in the city of Haifa. We have no reports of impacts as of yet, but make no mistake, this marks a major escalation. The first time that Iran has fired missiles towards Israel since the ceasefire took effect in April. It follows hours after Israel carried out strikes in the Lebanese capital of Beirut, targeting Iran's proxy there, Hezbollah. Iranian officials over the course of the last week have warned that any Israeli strikes on Beirut would be considered a major escalation and would have grave consequences. That was in word.
My bad, cat.
At the state of Israel. The question now is what happens going forward. The Israeli Prime Minister is indeed holding a situational assessment as we speak, meeting with his top security officials. I would say that it is very likely that Israel will carry out a response to this ballistic missile attack from Iran. And where do things go from there? Because again, over the course of this ceasefire, while we have seen, sporadic fire around the Strait of Hormuz between the United States and Iran, we have not seen this level of attack from Iran or from Israel, should Israel decide to carry out strikes inside of Iran tonight. But make no mistake, Fred, this is showing that there is a real risk of this region tilting back towards all-out war. This was a scenario that it seemed like the countries in the region were trying to avoid. There was negotiations, there was diplomacy between the United States and Iran. President Trump repeatedly promising that a deal was almost at hand, but now Iran towards Israel very likely to retaliate. Where things go from here will determine the future of this region. Fred.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Jeremy got it. I think it's posted. We'll be right back.
CNN Newsroom is brought to you by Single Care. Real prescriptions. Real.
Thanks to joint tibia. That little thing. Wait, $70 for a refill? Gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
Well, we're saving with Single Care.
I know how to make slick-looking goggles/glasses, but I have no idea how to make slick-looking social media stuff.
But GoDaddy Arrow uses AI to create social content out of thin air, like this one.
Oh, God's not professional. Oh, gosh, nerves.
Can't never go wrong. It's not that I do go wrong on me.
It seemed like he had some discomfort. His doctor diagnosed him with osteoarthritis pain and recommended that we try Librela.
Adverse events may include ataxia, anorexia, and lethargy. Do not use in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs. Take extreme care to avoid self-injection.
Librela has helped our manufacturer's own self.
This is Luke and Ann, who spend a lifetime saving for retirement, but living off those savings is scary. With their Advisor Max plan, earn and save became invest and spend, and now
We're getting a lot more enjoyment out of life.
JP Morgan Wealth Management.
Insurance to have okay. Very important for certain. I'm like, wait. Certainty matters. So when you need the right type of money, you won't go back. Really perfectly accurate. Well, you're funny. Now your next event is over. Inspire your It won't be hard to find someone to fix this. But before I started dancing, different story. A lot of change for us at Indy since then, but the issue facing homeowners is the same, and it's moved into skilled local pros.
And trust behind the ones you trust.
It's my trash. Introducing the Bre Top Odor Fighter. It reduces top odors, replacing them with 45 things of fresh. It works on all kinds of stuff.
Customers provide enough. What deal? 2 phone lines on America's best network. Plus, America's fastest 5G home internet for just $30 each.
A reliable network is important. With T-Mobile, that is wonderful. Internet, that is perfect. The setup is so easy to run the business or encrypted files and data. It's What are you doing for July 3rd? July 3rd? Well, we're doing special on that news thing. They never go through. Continue to follow the right thing through the really military. It detects inside public and those Dr. Ross for what appears to be the first time since early April. The military sent alert warning to public fire president northern Israel. It's fairly high. That was now public people want to healthcare.
third wave of Iranian ballistic missiles that are being fired. All of those waves, it is important to note, are being fired towards Israel, central or southern Israel, which the Iran also has the capacity to reach. And so what you can read from that is that there is a clear message that this is limited to what Israel has done to Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah in the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Northern Israel is also where Hezbollah has fired rockets towards Israel as well, which the Israeli government said prompted its strikes towards the Lebanese capital. But what we know over the course of the last half hour, we have seen a major new escalation in this conflict. The first waves of Iranian ballistic missile fire toward the state of Israel since April, since the ceasefire went into effect between the United States and Iran, a ceasefire that included Israel as well by proxy and was also meant to have included the Lebanese front as well. But what we have witnessed over the course of the last week has been Israeli attacks in Lebanon continuing, Hezbollah rocket fire towards Israeli troops in southern Lebanon, and also earlier today, Hezbollah fire towards northern Israel. And subsequent to that was that Israeli fire towards the Lebanese capital of Beirut. And the Iranians have warned earlier this week that if Israel targeted the Lebanese capital, then there would be grave consequences for that, effectively warning about the potential resumption of war between the two countries. And we don't know where this is headed. It is very likely that Israel will retaliate for this ballistic missile fire with strikes on Iran, but we do not yet have that confirmed as of yet. What happens next remains to be seen. Will this be a kind of limited tit for tat between these two countries, or will this tilt this region once again towards the kind of all-out war that we had before that April ceasefire went into effect?
And then Jeremy, were those missiles intercepted that Israel says were fired from Iran?
Well, so far we don't have any reports of any actual impacts. We know that there are instances where these missiles can be intercepted. Sometimes you have missiles that fall in open areas where they are intentionally not intercepted because they're not expected to hit any population centers in Israel. And then what we've also seen over the first 2 months of this war was Iran's use of cluster munitions as well, which were very difficult to intercept, but resulted in these smaller bombs being dispersed, oftentimes over populated areas, causing damage, sometimes causing injuries and even fatality. But by and large, if people are in shelter, they will be safe from the cluster munitions. So far, we haven't seen, again, any reports of infection, any reports of injuries. I'm checking again right now as I'm speaking to you, Fred. But what we've heard so far from Magen David Adom, Israel's rescue service, as of this was 15 minutes ago now, they said that they have not received any calls to their dispatch center and that they would provide further updates if necessary. And as I'm speaking to you now, Fred, again, that third wave that I was talking about, where we got the early warning for northern Israel, there are now air raid sirens going off across northern Israel, south of the city of Haifa, still in northern Israel. But it's a different area than was targeted earlier in the night. I can show you briefly on my phone here. You can see some of these alerts beginning to go off. This is the area where those alerts sirens are going off, warning again of incoming Iranian ballistic missiles.
Okay, Jeremy Diamond, thank you so much. Be safe for that. Take a short break and we'll get back to you right after this.
This lineup premieres tonight at 9 on CNN and next day on the CNN.
Time for mix and bake plate. That mix any way you want.
Should fix long get my hair. Long day and fix my glass. For safety, there's a lot of women like this one. I don't know if they're hiring, but shit.
Get it tasty if you get it and big one. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that. Tell me if you can hear this.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life.
That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way. Our superior expertise is backed by licensed professionals that take the time to get to know you and your needs. Book your free test. Call 1-800-686-7961. Your care is on us. From your first hearing test to free unlimited servicing, fittings, and checkups. We utilize solutions that transform hearing. It's our way of offering nearly invisible designs to AR technology. Try risk-free. Call 1-800-686-7961. Stay connected to your loved ones. Book now. Call 1-800-686-7961. Now the hotel deal highlights from Trivago. Jurgen and his couple just saved over $100 a night on Trivago.
They got their tactics right.
Let's see it again. This hotel normally costs $285 a night. And boom, $170.
Trivago just makes it look easy. World class.
Score your own deal on Trivago when you compare hotel prices and save up to 40%.
That's what winning looks like.
Hotel Trivago.
Let's shop and then rendezvous the food court at 2 p.m. Okay, it's not a heist. Just say that. Okay. Young homeowners can't do anything without a plan.
Hey, what's our plan of attack?
It's flea market. We're not attacking anything. We should get rides first, big possession after. How about we just eat when we're hungry? What if one of us is hungry, but the other's not as hungry?
If you're not hungry right now, I feel like an hour though. Chris will protect you from becoming a palace. We can't manage your own alone. You want with us. Hey, there's regroup at the shrubbery. How did I get shooting all the action despite vision loss from one alone? It started when the Vabismo opened up my world. I was worried when I started to lose my sight. But my doctor recommended Vabismo. Vabismo is different. It's the only treatment thought to block two causes of wet AMD. So I'm back doing what I love, knowing that Vabismo improves vision. There's a check for 4 months complete free.
Vabismo is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection, eye swelling, or are allergic to. Vabismo can cause eye infections, retinal detachment, temporary increase in eye pressure, and has eye risk of eye infection, or forceful restoring blood vessels in the eye. If changes to vision or pH, your doctor or retina specialist can look.
I'm bringing it all into focus. Open up your world with Vabismo.
It's the #1 prescribed FDA-approved treatment for wet AMD and diabetic macular edema. Ask your retina specialist about Vabismo.
This is Ruth and Sherry. We're about to buy the dream home, but their value Chris didn't see it helping long term. So the new investment plan protected the future and helped make their old home feel like new.
We just want to be comfortable and enjoy our life. Chris has been a big part of that.
JP Morgan Wealth Management.
Jackpot Party, the legendary free-to-play mobile slots game, is giving you a chance to win a cruise and free plays. Because when it comes to winning, Jackpot Party always gives you more. Download Jackpot Party for free and register to enter today, and you might just cruise away.
So that's 1 pair of prescription glasses, plus anti-reflective lens coating.
Oh,
Award-winning customer service.
that's me.
That's also me.
I see.
And free frame adjustments for life.
And that's included in the...
$95.
Oh,
Welcome to Warby Parker.
Americans to respect someone who disagrees.
I completely disagree.
And so do I, but I agree. Fred Ferguson, American on purpose. Saturday on CNN and next day on the CNN app.
We continue to follow breaking news just into CNN. The Israeli military has said it detected incoming ballistic missiles from Iran on what appears to be the first time since early April. This now is CNN military analyst, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton. Great to see you, Colonel. So what does this mean in your view as pertains to a ceasefire that started somewhere in April?
Yeah, somewhere in April, Fred, and I think that's going to be, perhaps something that we look at in our rearview mirrors as being a kind of a past that we would like to see. What we're dealing with, I think, is possibly a rupture of that ceasefire. And I think it's, we may be looking at Iranian reaction to the Israeli attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. So the Iranians have never been pleased with the fact that the Israelis were going after the Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, and that may have precipitated this action on the part of the Iranians. And this, I think, what we're looking at here is perhaps a very high volume of attacks. And if that is the case, then it's pretty definite that the ceasefire is at the very least in danger and may be over if that is in fact, if that in fact does turn out to be true.
Jeremy had just reported moments ago that this was a third wave of Iranian missiles. Is that considered high volume that you speak of?
I would say so. Yes, absolutely, Fred. I think what you were looking at here is, when they do one-off missiles that go after certain targets, say in the Persian Gulf region, like the attack on the Kuwait airport, that is a discrete attack. This right now is an attack that involves a lot of volume. We don't know yet exactly how many missiles, but a third wave indicates that they are trying to overwhelm the Israeli air and missile defense system, the Iron Dome, and the David Sling and the Arrow systems. So those systems are, definitely in play right now. They're definitely being used to try to protect Israel and Israeli installations from these Iranian attacks. But this whole Iranian idea of basically overwhelming these air and missile defense systems is predicated on the fact that Iran basically wants to take this war to Israel, and that's where I think this is headed. And this could have significant implications for any effort to start peace negotiations or to make that ceasefire more permanent. I think that's something that is now in the past. It's kind of in the rearview mirror at the moment.
So right now we understand that the targeted areas involve northern Israel. What will you be looking for, I guess, in the coming moments? We don't know how long this could, carry on, but what will you be looking for that might indicate something about, Iran's strategy here, or if this is a prelude to something else?
Yeah, I think what we will have to see is what kind of targets they're looking at. So, like in northern Israel, a target set in northern Israel tells me is that they are going after the Israeli military units that are directly involved in activities in Lebanon. So that would mean all the IDF army units that are stationed along the border. They don't want to hit targets in Lebanon, probably because of the fact that they could potentially hit Lebanese civilians. So that may limit their ability to hit targets in that area. But they're definitely looking at, I would presume at this point they're going after supply depots, communications links, command and control nodes that the Israelis have in that area. And that's a significant escalation, but it would not be as much of an escalation if they limited to that particular area and they don't go after other targets like command and control centers for the entire Israeli defense force. So if they go after those targets, which would be in the Tel Aviv area, that would then indicate that we're getting into a all bets are off kind of situation. I don't think we are there yet based on what we see so far. But if the target set expands beyond northern Israel, then I think we might get to that point. So I think we're at a dangerous juncture at this moment, and I think it's something where this could rapidly escalate into something that would involve perhaps an Israeli response on Iran and against Iranian targets, by the Israelis themselves. And if that happened, then this could really spiral out of control if it's not contained.
And in the world of both diplomatic and military strategies, when this is happening on the heels of the president of the United States talking about, progress being made with its peace deal with Iran, we're saying it is hopeful. And the latest words coming from the president was, we're close. Is this Iran's way of speaking a little bit louder, more vociferously in a different way about where things stand through this kind of military action?
Yes, absolutely. Because the Iranians, if they were convinced that they were on the path to some kind of a ceasefire or some kind of resolution to the issue with the United States, they would not be conducting attacks like this. Because we have to remember that the Iranians see what is happening in Lebanon as part of the same conflict. They do not make a distinction with what's happening in Lebanon, with what's happening in Iran or along their coastline. So, given all of that, the Iranians are looking at this and they're saying, we, not only think that this peace process or this effort to get a ceasefire is basically reaching a dead end. They see the impasse, for example, with the 24 billion or so in Iranian assets that they want to actually take possession of before they limit their actions in the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, the United States is saying, no, you have to limit your actions in the Strait of Hormuz. You have to reopen the strait before any of those monies are sent in your direction. And that, impasse, the Iranians are looking at that as, probably an effort to force the issue to try to get things more favorable to their side of the negotiating table. But they also see this as a possibility where they want to make sure that their position not only is heard, but they also want to dampen expectations, possibly even on the part of their own people, as to whether or not there's going to be a real ceasefire at this point.
All right, very tenuous moment here. Colonel Senator Clayton, thank you so much. We're going to take a short break for now. We'll be right back. When your home needs work, where do you go? Angie?
That's where Angie came in.
With Angie, find top-rated pros in your area, plus compare quotes and pricing to help you get all your jobs done well.
Angie, the one you trust to find them what you trusted.
I used to hide my ugly fungus-damaged toenails, but then I found Optinail patches. Optinail patches work while you sleep to lighten, smooth, and moisturize for clearer, healthier-looking toenails. Get Optinail patches and show off your toes again.
She's got energy to do things that she wasn't doing before.
Bella is used to control pain in dogs with osteoarthritis. Adverse events may include ataxia, anorexia, and lethargy. Do not use in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs. Take extreme care to avoid self-injection.
With Chime, you've been fee-free and 5%. Monthly bills, streaming services, parking in the Pioneer Savings account, or on vacation. Belém is America's #1 tourist bank.
What should I eat? Will this food spike my sugar levels?
The Freestyle Libre 3+ sensor tracks your glucose in real time. Libre assists in help guide food choices. This is progress. Try for free at freestylelibre.us.
Honey, Mortgage 26 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage 26. Realtor says more realtor agents recommend realtor.com. They track every mortgage so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot got it.
Is realtor.com.
Carpets are falling away in the dust mites.
Ew.
Show no mercy.
But one word is actionable, which is not something you usually see from a financial product. It usually just is what it is, but we can actually make informed decisions. So actionable is my one word for relay.
Your team's goal is to make something lasting. More input to understand your that super and brings teams together. Quality products, on-time delivery, and a team dedicated to getting it right. Visit forinfresh.com.
Think you need a new roof? Think again and save thousands.
We'll help you put off the high cost of a roof replacement for at least 5 years. Okay?
Sometimes even 15.
We're America's most trusted roofer because we always try to save your roof rather than replace it. We'll restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a new one. But don't wait. Your roof needs a too much protective coating. It's too late. Call now or scan the code and we'll give you an assessment of your roof for free.
Rhythm is finally getting a full 12 hours of sleep thanks to Coterie diapers.
We switched to Coterie, and he started sleeping 11 hours through the night.
When we made the switch, our baby started sleeping better through the night, and we had way less diaper changes. So if you're dreaming of more sleep and you want to upgrade your diaper, try Coterie.
We have so much to talk about.
We have this story in common, Dad.
Okay, with all my heart.
Yeah.
Actors on Actors, now streaming on the CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by mesobook.com. If you or a loved one have mesothelioma, we'll send you a free book to answer questions you may have. Call now and we'll come to you. 800-821-4000.
Follow breaking news into CNN. The Israeli military has said it detected incoming ballistic missiles from Iran for what appears to be the first time since early April. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is in Tel Aviv for us. What more are you learning, Jeremy?
Yeah, getting some new information, Frederica, and that is that the Israeli military will respond to Iran's ballistic missile fire towards Israel. My colleague Tal Shalev and I are told by two sources that that response will be, quote, powerful. So you can read into that that the Israeli military is likely to strike Iran tonight. We will see how powerful, as these sources are describing, that attack actually is. We're also getting new information about the Iranian ballistic missile fire towards Israel. As I told you, recently, Frederica, we've seen at least 3 waves of Iranian ballistic missiles. An Israeli source now telling us that there have been at least 10 missiles in those barrages that have been fired towards Israel. The Israeli military also saying that it has intercepted all of the missiles that have been fired by Iran thus far. Again, those missiles have been directed towards carrying out the threat that it issued earlier this week. The Israeli military carried out attacks on Beirut, on the Lebanese capital, that Iran would retaliate towards Israel. And that is indeed what is unfolding right now, hours after the Israeli military carried out strikes in the Lebanese capital. We are now seeing this response to that. Again, we're expecting that the Israeli military will carry out strikes against Iran in application. We will see whether or not the thing that they continue, or if this is going to spiral once again into the kind of regional war that gripped this region for 2 months up until that ceasefire took effect in April.
And then Jeremy, once again, is Iran saying this is its strikes or missiles targeting northern Israel is a retaliation for Israel targeting Lebanon?
Well, we have not yet seen any official Iranian government comment tonight on this, but you can be clear based on the fact that Iran has carried out these strikes following Israel strikes in Beirut, the fact that Iran is targeting northern Israel, where Israel would be carrying out many of its operations against Hezbollah, the Iranian proxy that is based in Lebanon. Based on all of that information, it is quite clear that Iran is indeed carrying out these strikes tonight against Israel in retaliation for Israel striking the Lebanese capital of Beirut, following through on a threat that, again, we've heard senior Iranian officials make over the course of the last week. And this is what Iran has really tried to do over the course of these negotiations that we've seen between Israel and Lebanon. We have seen efforts by Iran to kind of link these two conflicts to ensure that any broader ceasefire between the United States and between Iran and Israel would also include Lebanon, because Iran is trying to desperately protect its most powerful proxy in the region, and that is the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. And so while earlier this week we saw an effort to say if Hezbollah doesn't strike northern Israel, Israel won't strike Beirut. We saw Hezbollah carry out rocket fire towards northern Israel. Israel then decided that it is still going to strike the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Now we find ourselves in a situation of crossfire between Iran and Israel.
All right, Jeremy Diamond, thanks so much for all of that. We'll check back with you. We're going to take a break for now. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to be an American today? I'm getting the vote to figure that out. That's all right. We don't need contradictions, of course. Go along. I'll bring that out. I mean, no. I'm sorry. It's an old habit.
Greg Purdy said, American on purpose. Said it on CNN. I wish I wasn't afraid to smile. I wish I could get implants. I'm just trying to trust. I'm not looking for another quick fix.
I want a smile I know will last. Clear Choice smiles are made to stand the test of time. They're built by bedtime and experts, backed by 20 years of pioneering research and a lifetime warranty on premium arches. Our smiles are built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
My moderate to severe Crohn symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
Now I'm back in the picture. Successfully with the Leslie IL-23 inhibitor and help achieve remission, taking clear symptoms in just 4 weeks for some people. He was remission at 12 weeks, at 1 year, even at 4 years. Visibly repaired. Don't use allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for causes.
Now's the time to take control of your kidneys. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic influence disease.
Look at Amy, working hard now so that future Amy can buy her very own boat.
Wait, sorry, the boat's great, but am I wearing culottes?
So you love the feelings.
Clock. What did I just say? Cheers a clock. Ew.
Here's to protecting your boat and RV 24/7 as part of your home and auto bundle.
So I like hang out with my insurance guy?
We do a podcast and everything.
Awesome.
Got my hands on the new Solo stove, still fire 22 griddle. This thing goes from 0 to sear in like 7 minutes. While it's stainless too, so no worrying about rust. You can spill it. Cleanup is mad easy. Now outside cooking, it's weeknights too.
The hotel deal for lights from Trivago. Jurgen, this couple just saved over $100 a night on Trivago.
They got that tactics right.
Let's see it again. This hotel normally costs $285 a night. Oh, $170.
Trivago just makes it look easy. Well, fast.
Score your own deal on Trivago when you compare hotel prices and save up to 40%.
That's what winning looks like.
Hotel Trivago. Teams share everything. Share everything. You have meningitis. Even if your team has been vaccinated, it could be nothing vaccinations recommended by the CDC against certain forms of meningitis. The care death can occur, sometimes within 24 hours. About 1 in 10 will die. Your team missing vaccination against certain groups of meningitis? Ask their doctor today. At Mochi Health, we know weight loss isn't always fair. It's why with our GLP-1 plans, we treat the science behind weight loss, not the shame, with doctor-led support at every step. For weight loss made fair, visit joinbooks.com. Yeah.
Are you working at Frankfurt?
Z matters. So when you need the right high quality promotional products, printed perfectly and guaranteed to arrive on time, that's the certainty of Ford. Wow your clients, nail your next event, or inspire your team by visiting FordImprint.com. Back when there were commercials planning buyers on many not yet living on in
Arrangement is on his workplace. That's fantastic.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this Sunday. I'm Rachel Winsfield and begin with this breaking news. Sirens going off as the Israeli military says it has intercepted a wave of incoming ballistic missiles from Iran. Sources tell CNN that Israel is preparing a quote powerful response to the attack. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is in Tel Aviv for us. Jeremy, tell us more.
Yeah, that's right, Frederica. The two Israeli sources are now telling us that the Israeli military intends to deliver a, quote, powerful response to Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel tonight. This was the first Iranian ballistic missile attack that we have seen in Israel since the ceasefire took place in April. And this marks a real potential turning point in this war if it is not very quickly contained. We could very quickly see this region once again tilt towards the kind of all-out war that took place for 2 months before that April ceasefire. So far, the Israeli military, we're told, has detected 10 missiles that were fired towards Israel and has intercepted all of those missiles were also fired towards northern Israel, as Iran seems to have made good on the threat to carry out strikes against Israel if Israel carried out a strike on the Lebanese capital of Beirut. And that is indeed what took place earlier today. Hours before this Iranian barrage of ballistic missiles, we saw Israeli strikes hitting the southern suburbs of Beirut, known as the Dahya, which is a Hezbollah stronghold. Hezbollah, of course, is Iran's most powerful proxy in this region. This appears to be Iran again following through on that threat, and now we will see what comes next. What is happening in Israel, though, is certainly that there are preparations for that kind of return to conflict with Iran. As we are seeing the Israeli prime minister currently sitting with his top security officials, consulting, looking at next moves, again, as we anticipate the likelihood of Israeli strikes inside of Iran. In addition to that, civilians in Israel are being prepared again for a wartime scenario. Schools in Israel have been closed across the country for tomorrow on Monday. And again, we're seeing people in northern Israel, where that missile fire has been directed so far, being instructed to remain near their shelters, as they have now faced at least 3 waves of Iranian ballistic missiles. Again, so far, no impacts from those missiles, all of them having been intercepted, according to the Israeli military. But again, a country and a region indeed that is bracing for what could come next. Fred?
And Jeremy, I know it's early, but what are you doing for people who are either already taking shelter or preparing to do so, and what their mindset is with what appears to be one retaliatory strike after another, and then this promise from Israel that its response will be powerful?
Yeah, well, again, it's important to know that most of the Israeli public, basically since this ceasefire went into effect in April, has been kind of waiting for the ceasefire to be broken, waiting to anticipating that it would be very likely that at some point the ceasefire would collapse. There have been several moments where people thought that those negotiations between the United States and Iran would collapse and would lead to a return to all-out war. So people have kind of lived with this cloud of uncertainty since that ceasefire took effect in April. And in particular, over the last week, we kind of saw this slowly building up as initially Israel backed off of planned attacks against Beirut. Then there was this agreement with the Lebanese government that if Hezbollah didn't strike northern Israel, Israel wouldn't strike the Lebanese capital. But then Hezbollah did carry out rocket fire towards northern Israel, and Israel did not hesitate to strike the Lebanese capital. And so in many ways, all of this was kind of foreseen and foretold. It just required the sequence of events to go exactly as it has to land us back in this scenario tonight, where Israelis are heading to bomb shelters, and where I assume inside of Iran, people are now prepared and perhaps living in fear of a renewal of Israeli bombardment of that country.
All right, Jeremy Diamond in Tel Aviv, thank you so much. We're going to get back to you in a moment. I'll let you do your further reporting. Meantime, Frida Gitas is here with me now. She's a CNN contributor and senior columnist for World Politics Review. All right, so Frida, I mean, how do you assess what is happening here? What will a quote unquote powerful response, which is what the Israeli military and leadership is saying, to Iran mean for the region?
Well, what we're seeing right now is all about Lebanon, and it's all about Iran's control of its proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Iran's effort to continue to have these strong links and to negotiate a deal with the United States that allows it to keep this control of Hezbollah. Lebanon has been trying to, the government, the legitimate government of Lebanon has been trying to sever that link, and so has President Trump, and so has Israel. But Iran doesn't want to let that happen. Israel negotiated a ceasefire with the Lebanese government, and Hezbollah rejected it. Iran rejected it, and now Hezbollah attacked Israel, and Israel attacked Beirut, which is the reason why Iran is attacking Israel. Iran wants to present itself as the defender of Lebanon, and that's what this attack was. Now, the magnitude of the impact of what we're seeing now will depend in large part on what kind of damage these barrages that Iran is launching at Israel, what kind of damage they cause. If Iran causes serious damage in Israel, this is going to really open up the war much more powerful.
You mean literal damage, you mean symbolic, because as we just heard from Jeremy, all of those missiles from Iran into Israel so far have been intercepted, according to the military. Or are you also talking about the damage of this ceasefire that started early April while these peace negotiations are going on between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. I mean, tie all of that together.
Well, I'm referring to literal damage. If so far we hear that the missiles have been intercepted, but we don't know how many missiles may be still on the way if Iran is going to continue firing. And the way the air defenses of Israel work, if there's a really massive barrage, it can overwhelm the system. If there are a lot of casualties in Israel, if there's a lot of physical damage, Israel is going to feel pressure to hit Iran much harder. Especially because we are in a political season in Israel. Israel is about to have elections, and no politician can allow a major casualties to go unresponded to.
So then do you see this as a, calculation from the Israeli government or Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership that this is almost dismissing what the United States president had said in a recent conversation, which was reported, which was essentially knock it off. I'm trying to get this peace talks, a peace deal going. So I don't need you, Israel, to now be continuing to fire into Lebanon. And so that it has happened, and now Iran is retaliating as a result. Do you see this as a more of a political move for Netanyahu government? What does that do in terms of potentially fracturing or further fracturing relations between Israel and the U.S. by potentially interfering now with these peace talks?
These peace talks that are about to give us a peace deal that, yes, that is right. Yeah. There is tension, obviously. It's very thoroughly reported tension between Netanyahu and Trump. And Netanyahu had given an order for Israeli troops to go to target Beirut, and Trump told him in no uncertain terms, as we heard, to stop that. And Netanyahu listened to Trump, reversed that order. But since then, there was an agreement that Israel would hold its fire against Beirut as long as Hezbollah held its fire against Israel. And I'm not talking about against Israeli forces, Israeli forces have been dying in southern Lebanon. I'm talking about Hezbollah attacking civilian populations in northern Israel. Hezbollah attacked civilian populations in northern Israel today, and that is when Israel went at Beirut. So it complicates the dilemma for President Trump. It complicates the whole negotiation, but this is such a complicated deal that Mr. Trump is trying to forge with Iran. Iran is feeling very emboldened. It's feeling very strong. It is watching the political, the turn against the war in the United States, and that is making the Iranians feel very strong. Right?
So then I wonder, do you evaluate Iran's, calculus here as listening to the president who was on NBC News today for an interview that was taped, previous to today, but saying, yes, peace plan, talks, it's close, and Iran has agreed to, no nuclear weapons. Is this, I mean, do you see some correlation between the timing here with Iran launching these missiles in response, even to what the president is saying?
I don't
how he's portraying.
Yeah, I still think these attacks against Israel are part of that, even though this all is happening in the same context. But remember that Iran attacked Kuwait, actually killed someone there, major damage to the main Kuwaiti airport, injuries to about 60 people. Iran is putting a lot of pressure on the president because they perceive that the United States is on the losing end of the timing here, that the longer this goes on, the harsher the pressure on President Trump to make a deal that will be favorable to Iran. They may or may not be right about that. President Trump seems to want a deal, but he's showing some signs of being willing to give this thing some time. Iran is also having this blockade that the United States imposed on Iranian ships and ships going to Iranian ports. Okay, is genuinely hurting the Iranian economy. And another thing that we always need to remember in this conflict is that we're looking at the politics in the United States. We can look at the politics inside Israel. Inside Iran, there's a great advantage in these situations to being a dictatorship. The people in Iran do not like their government. That is not putting that much pressure on the Iranian government right now. That's that they have a longer lead time in that sense because if it's not a democracy, you can ignore public opinion for a longer time, even though you can't ignore it forever.
All right, pretty Gita. Thank you so much. Really fascinating. All right, we'll have much more straight ahead. Thanks, Anna.
CNN has been honored with 6 News and Documentary Emmy Awards, celebrating outstanding journalism, enterprise reporting, state vendor. This is CNN.
When someone you thought you knew reveals an unexpected part, it's like discovery betrays private waters and animals. So you can rest on your own and speak for it grow from your relationship.
All right, so that's one pair of prescription glasses, Duke Plus anti-reflective lens coating, scratch-resistant coating,
Did I choose?
UV protection,
And that's included in the
$95. Oh, welcome to Warby Parker.
spray. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn. Until the hedge is done.
Are you one of the millions surprised by rising prices that AT&T just raised your bills? You had prices. Treat your vote to T-Mobile and they'll give you $400 when you switch. Plus, get T-Mobile's 5-year price guarantee on its convenience plans. I guarantee you won't look back.
For the new boat, Amy.
And I'll bundle it in with your home and auto with our 24/7 protection.
Hope a young man can see me now. She'd be so proud. Sorry, am I wearing culottes?
How did I get here? Shooting all the action despite vision loss from 1 a.m. It started when Babismo opened up my world. I was worried when I started to use my sight, but my doctor recommended Babismo. Babismo is different. It's the only treatment thought to block 2 causes of wet AMD. So I'm back doing what I love, knowing that Babismo improves vision. There's a character for 4 months between treatments.
Bre is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection, eye swelling, or are allergic to it. Bre could cause eye infections, retinal detachment, temporary increase in eye pressure, and uncommon risk of heart attack, stroke, or severe stroke. Bre is to be behind the outdoor or retina specialist.
Wow, I'm bringing it all into focus. Open up your world with Babismo.
The #1 prescribed FDA-approved treatment for wet AMD and diabetic macular edema. Ask your retina specialist about Babismo.
You try? You better be brief. Yeah. #1 choice for bagel. The following is a public announcement from the dad Alliance. Dad here house who wants weather to fun. That's Dad approved. Look at all your automobile protection. So baller. Okay, this has been a message from the Dad Alliance reminding you to stay away from the dang thermostats and visit WeatherTech.com for your dad's neck.
Dry, tired, itchy, burning. My dry eye symptoms got worse over time. My eye doctor became the root was inflammation. Because it means that, so release is lasting.
Xiidra treats the signs and symptoms of dry eye disease. Don't use up allergic to Xiidra and seek medical help if needed. Common side effects include eye irritation, discomfort, blurred vision, and unusual taste sensation. Don't touch container tip to your eye or any surface. Before using Xiidra, remove contact lenses and wait 15 minutes before resurfacing.
Dry eye over and over. It's time for Xiidra. When kids start making money, Jace can help them figure out how to manage it with smart tools. Guidance from expert bankers.
That's the first deposit. Check out what we so
It's good for kids and good for parents. Jace, make that up. What's yours? LeBron Heights, Healthcare Manufacturers also.
The color is used to control pain in dogs with osteoarthritis. Adverse events may include ataxia, anorexia, and lethargy. Do not use in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs. Take extreme care to avoid self-injection.
This Land premieres tonight at 9 on CNN and next day on the CNN app.
Back to Continue to follow breaking news just into CNN. The Israeli military has said it intercepted incoming ballistic missiles from Iran for what appears to be the first time since early April. With us now is CNN military analyst, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton. Also, the founder and former president of the National Iranian American Council, Trita Parsi. Great to see both of you. Trita, I want to begin with you. In your view, ultimately, what precipitated Iran to fire these missiles into Israel for the first time since this peace agreement or ceasefire went into effect early April?
The U.S. and Iran have been negotiating, and the Iranian position has been that any ceasefire has to be region-wide, meaning that it cannot just be between the U.S. and Iran, but Israel also needs to stop its bombardment of Lebanon. And I think the Trump administration took that very seriously. That's part of the reason why there was that phone call that Trump had with Netanyahu. The conflict was stacking. But yesterday, the Israelis struck, or actually just a couple hours ago, they struck at Beirut, the specific area in Beirut that was very sensitive to the. And Iran warned that they would respond if that took place. And now it appears that they have. At least 4 waves of missiles have been shot at Israel. And now Trump is stepping in and saying that he does not want to see Netanyahu strike back.
Now, we haven't confirmed that the president has stepped in, but you are hearing through your sources that the president has reached out to the Israeli leadership and in response to Israeli leadership saying it will have a powerful, quote unquote, powerful response to Iran.
It's been reported by other outlets that Trump has at least said that he will do this. And I think this has always been the question mark. If the Israeli-Iranian rivalry flares up again, will the U.S. re-enter that war or will it stay out? And I think if it is true that Trump is going to tell the Israelis to back off, do not continue this, that is the right call because he cannot allow the Israelis or the Iranians to ensure that their rivalry takes the U.S. hostage and forces the U.S. back into war that it does not want to be part of any longer.
Rita, is this a setback or is this more of the same?
No, this is absolutely a setback. We shouldn't be in this situation at all. If diplomacy had been done somewhat differently, I think we could have avoided this scenario altogether. But it may also be a turning point in the sense that now it becomes very clear what happens if there isn't a deal. And that may sharpen the focus of every side to make sure that they actually get across the goal line. But there are a lot of challenges in the talks, and almost all of them go back to the deep mistrust that exists between the two sides.
And can I ask you, what do you mean by that? It may be a turning point.
Well, in the sense that if this causes the collapse of the negotiations altogether, then there is, of course, a risk that the war begins anew, but not just between Israel and Iran, but a broader war, and that would suck the U.S. back into it. That would obviously be a terrible terrorism. And I think seeing how close we are to such a